the medic who fought a war without a weapon. His distaste of weapons and violence was rooted in his religious upbringing. Welcome viewers! Ang video natin ngayon ay magtatalakay sa noble at morally upright journey ni war veteran Desmond Doss, isang mahinhin at payat na soldier galing sa Lynchburg, Virginia. During the muddled war times of 1942, si Desmond Doss, isang Seventh-day Adventist who wouldn't touch a weapon at ayaw din magtrabaho sa Sabbath, ay nag-enlist into the Allied Army with the duty ng isang combat medic dahil naniniwala siya sa cause ng kanyang great nation. Pero dahil sa kanyang religion, he had vowed not to kill, and the army wanted nothing to do with him. Noong bata pa tayo, baka maalala nyo na palagi kayong sinasabihan ng a student without a pen is like a soldier without a weapon. Kapag nakalimutan natin ang ating pangsulat tuwing may quiz or exam, ang quote na ito generally holds true, especially sa ating contemporary society. Soldiers diving headfirst into the enemy territory na wala man lang pistol o kahit combat knife in hand was a phenomenon that was unheard of dahil sa suicidal nature nito. Pero for combat medic Desmond Doss, however, ang unarmed nature ng kanyang combat was routine. Kinuha niya ang biblical commandment ng thou shalt not kill para maging main driving force sa likod ng kanyang noble actions. Doss managed to fight 3 major vicious battles completely unarmed. Pero kahit wala siyang sandata, he was well equipped with his faith and protected with the armor of God. Surprisingly, hindi lang siya bumalik na buhay sa mga labanan na yun, pero he also fought tooth and nail para i-ensure na ang mga comrades in arms niya made it out along with him. Dahil sa kanyang noble actions during World War II, na-redefine niya ang ibig sabihin ng salitang war by proving it to be something that did not necessitate violence at brutality, a rocky start. Pero it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows sa journey ni Doss. Ang buhay niya was actually marred in strife and abuse dahil sa kanyang religious beliefs na naging cornerstone sa kanyang character. Born as devout Seventh-day Adventist, natural lang para kay Desmond Doss na mag-develop ng inherent distaste when it came to weapons and violence in general dahil firmly rooted ang principles of kindness sa kanyang beliefs at religious upbringing. Ang mga religious principles niya ay nagdictate sa kanyang life of non-violence, pero it also dictated na maka-indulge lang siya to a strictly vegetarian diet, both of which would prove crucial and detrimental para sa kanyang buhay sa military camp, more so kapag darating nga siya sa real-life combat encounters. Ang simula ng World War II ay nagdulot ng napakalaking psychological at religious dilemma para kay Doss, while naniniwala naman siya na necessary ang war to bring peace at the time. The use of violence, however, ay hindi as necessary. Ayon sa kanya, dapat may ibang paraan para umabot tayo sa peaceful resolution without shedding blood. Ang noble mindset na ito ay ang basis ng kanyang actions. Regardless, setting aside his religious principles at beliefs, sinundan niya ang kanyang patriotic duties at nag-enlist siya in the United States Army noong April 1, 1942. Kabilang siya sa 77th Infantry Division at na-assign siya as a normal rifleman. Pero despite ang classification na ito, nag-protest siya sa mga top officials at generals ng army para bigyan siya ng role as a combat medic instead. And soon after, ang regimental chaplain ay nagbigay sa kanyang protest and assigned him his new duty. Unsurprisingly, kahit na para sa mga combat medics, kailangan din silang magdala ng kanilang common sidearm na M1911A1 pistol at combat knife para sa kanilang self-defense. Pero si Doss, however, ay nag-refuse sa mga sandatang ito to the dismay and frustration ng kanyang commanding officers at squad mates. Ayon sa kanila, if hindi nga niya kaya magprotekta sa kanyang sarili, paano ba siya makafulfill sa kanyang duty as a combat medic to protect others? For more inconvenience para sa squad niya, nag-request din siya with keeping in line with his religious duties and faith ay dapat bigyan siya ng Saturdays off instead sa normal military mandated na Sundays. And ultimately, dahil sa kanyang constant harassment sa mga officials, nag-grant din ang request niya and special treatment na ito made Doss wildly unpopular sa kanyang division, hindi lang dahil sa kanyang religious beliefs, pero sa kanyang stubborn attitude din. Ang squad mates niya made a mockery sa kanyang religious beliefs dahil para sa kanila, he was seen to have it easier compared sa kanila. Since combat medic siya, ang pwesto niya sa battle formation ay palagi na lang bilang isang rear guard, away from the firefight. Tapos dahil sa kanyang principle na hindi siya magdadala ng sandata, he always had to be protected by others. The army made Doss' life hell kapag nagtitraining sila. Nagsimula ito as constant harassment, then it became abusive. Ayon sa mga World War II veterans na nakasama sa parehong battalion ni Doss, kinukonsider daw nila siya as a pest. Nag-question din sila sa kanyang sincerity at nagtapon din sila ng sapatos sa likod ni Doss whenever siya nagdadasal sa hapon. Para sa kanila, he was just a slacker, someone hindi sana pinayagan mag-serve in the United States Army, and somebody who was their weakest link in the chain. Napakarami ding mga squadmates niya ang nag-claim na he got more passes than the general. To make matters worse, ang kanyang dietary preferences as a vegetarian were so unusual at that time and he was so despised ng kanyang mismong division na meron ngang isang squadmate ang recorded na nagsabi sa kanya na, "When we go to combat, Doss, you're not coming back alive. I'm gonna shoot you myself." Battle of Guam, 1944. Ang first state of a live-fire battle para kay Doss ay nakarating noong na-assign ang kanyang squad sa recapturing mission sa Guam. Ang territory na ito held 20,000 Japanese troops. According sa Geneva Convention, firing at a medic na may visible insignia ay kinukonsider bilang isang war crime. Pero in a cruel twist of fate, ang insignia na yun also represented na ang nagsusuot ng regalia na yun was a valuable and easy target. And so medics and other support personnel were immediately fired upon by Japanese snipers at pati din ang mga regular infantrymen. Ito ang first time na na-expose si Doss sa cruel realities of a real war zone. Ang kanyang everyday routine involved evading bullets and saving lives. It was on one of those days sa Guam na may isang young recruit na nakakita ng shiny at pristine na fountain pen just laying on the ground. Dahil sa beauty at quality ng fountain pen na yun, the recruit was tempted into picking it up. Pero as soon as nag-bend down siya para kunin ang pen na yun, biglang sumabog ang immediate area nila in a blinding flash. It turns out na ang fountain pen na yun ay isang booby trap masterfully placed ng mga Japanese troops. Ang explosion na yun had left the young recruit with a gaping wound sa kanyang dibdib. Mga maliliit na shard ng metal were seen jutting out of it. Pero somehow, working his magic, Doss managed to stabilize his condition by administering first aid. Pagkatapos nun, nailigtas din niya ang 3 ibang sundalo na nadamay sa blast radius. Battle of Leyte. Ang sunod na crucial event sa kanyang military career came with the Battle of Leyte dito sa ating very own Philippines sa October 9. Nagsimula ang labanan with the sounds of the US coastal bombing at ang advancing efforts nila only become more demanding the more inland the US troops went. Ang heroic story ni Doss dito ay nagsisimula with a fellow medic Clarence Glenn na nag-respond sa emergency call ng isa pang medic who had been fired at by a machine gun. Glenn ran off into no man's land para ibigay ang tulong na nangangailangan ng kanyang comrade. While doing this heroic act, nabaril din si Glenn by the same machine gunner and he fell to the ground barely alive. It just so happened na si Glenn ay isa sa mga close friend ni Doss coming from back home. Hindi niya mapayagan ang kanyang sarili para pabayaan siya. On those, at that moment, nag-set up si Doss sa isang napaka-noble act of friendship and bravery. Nag-convince siya sa isa pang medic to accompany him sa dangerous recovery mission para tulungan ang 2 wounded medics. Doss focused his attention on the first medic who had several napakalaking sugat sa kanyang mukha. Ginamit ni Doss ang kanyang creativity at critical thinking at nag-improvise siya ng stretcher made from tree branches para dalhin ang injured medic to a nearby aid station. Pero unfortunately, para sa kanyang hometown friend na si Glenn, he wouldn't be so lucky at namatay siya habang dinadala siya ni Doss to the aid station. Ang emotional trauma ni Doss was made only worse dahil sa kanyang unbearable gutom na nararamdaman niya dahil hindi siya pwede makakain sa meat rations ng army. Instead, he would oftentimes settle sa bland and salted crackers o kaya ang mga coconuts around the Philippine shore. Perhaps, a happy surprise came to him sa devastating time na yan when ang mismong squadmate niya nag-threaten na papatayin siya earlier came to him for guidance and nag-request din siya to pray for him. Battle of Okinawa, Hacksaw Ridge. Para kay Desmond Doss, ang final battle na ito, lasting for 81 days, ay nag-epitomize sa bloodshed the likes of which he had never known before. Sa April 29, 1945, ang US troops ay nagtask para i-scale ang isang 400-foot cliff sa Okinawa, Japan na tinawagan nilang Hacksaw Ridge. Bago nagsimula mag-akyat ang mga sundalo, Doss offered a quiet prayer para sa kanyang comrades. Pero as soon as they reached the top of the cliff, ang US troops came under intense military fire. It turns out na ang Japanese troops on top sa hill ay naghihintay sa tamang panahon para i-ambush sila. They were fired upon by both small arms at mga high-powerful machine guns at nagresulta ito sa napakaraming casualties sa isang araw lamang na yon. On May 4th, as the attacks were still ongoing, nakayanan ni Doss na tulungan ang mga injured comrades niya throughout the entire month. Bawat araw, under a barrage of gunfire and explosions, gumapang si Doss sa lupa na basang-basa dahil sa mixture ng ulan at dugo ng kanyang comrades. From wounded soldiers to wounded soldier, slowly but surely siyang nag-assist sa kanilang injuries. He dragged the several injured men papunta sa edge ng Hacksaw Ridge, tied a rope around their bodies, at dahan-dahan niyang ibinaba sila to the other medics awaiting below. Sa kanyang interview in later years, nagsabi siya na I was praying the whole time. I just kept praying, Lord, please help me get one more. Nakaligtas si Doss ng higit 75 sa kanyang mga comrades, kasama na diyan ang kanyang captain na si Jack Glover, over a 12-hour period. The same soldier na nag-shame sa kanya dahil sa kanyang religious beliefs now praised him dahil sa kanyang bravery. Ayon kay Glover, he's one of the weakest soldier alive, and then having him end up saving my life was the irony of the whole thing. Even though he wasn't a good soldier, he was an excellent comrade. Today, ang legacy ni Desmond Doss has become the subject of many books, documentaries, at films kagaya ng Hacksaw Ridge noong 2016. Ang kanyang mantra rings true sa puso ng lahat ng tao who yearns for peace even during these times of conflict and vulnerability. While others are taking lives, I'll do my best to try to save them instead. At yan ang inspiring story ni Desmond Doss. Sana nagustuhan niyo ang video na ito, and if you did, do leave a like and check out our channel for more quality content. Thanks.